Yo, what's going on, everybody?
What
Welcome.
up?
What's going on, guys?
Well, howdy.
Um, yeah, super excited for this one.
Whew.
Thanks for pulling up, everyone. I'm super excited about this. Today we are going to be breaking down the EP that Andrew and I have been working on for years and years and years,
Years.
5 years, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. I'm gonna keep an eye on like the waiting room, etc. I'm gonna be kind of like moderating and making sure everyone's getting in. I'll also be keeping track of the chat. Um, Robert here is taking care of the video stuff, and then Andrew sitting in his beautiful pink chair. You should have worn a
Hello.
pink bathrobe, dude. Sitting in his pink chair.
I got time.
Yeah, no, it's all
I
right.
can go get it.
Next time. Next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Andrew is in my band, and we've been in a band for like 18 years. I don't know, 19, 80, 87 years. And so we've been working on these songs for a hot minute. Yeah, we have a first EP out that we self-produced. I mean, a big part of the SRPC lore is that I actually learned engineering off of our first EP, basically. And
Yeah.
we went into the studio and like I got an internship at the studio in Boston, where Andrew and I are from, and then we just went in there as like self-producing band people and just like got obsessed with engineering, um,
Yep.
and really just like honed in on our chops off this first EP. So this is the second EP, which we've been working on for 5 years, which is a really long time. And there's a reason it took that long. It's because
Longer if you
yeah.
count pre-pandemic work and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah. We did. It's had a lot of like ups and downs and etc. But we finally closed the book on it the other day. Andrew, do you want to add anything to like the lore, the EP2 lore, or any band stuff?
Um, I mean, this is really our where anything goes, we can do whatever we want and experiment and try things. And there's a lot of bad ideas, both creatively and engineering wise, that we can just delete it, but engineering wise, we got to work around them. And you'll see plenty of that in the drum
Hmm.
tracks and some of the choices we made. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to
Hmm.
look back. We did these drum tracks, I think, in 2021 when they first reopened the remodeled studio. They gave us a free session because they just knew us. They knew Nick and they knew that we would push it to its limits as soon as we got there, and that's exactly what we did. So
Yeah, I remember that they gave us free studio time because they were like, you guys are the stress test because Andrew
yeah.
and I are fucking nerds, bro, and we'll go in there and we'll start using
I
like 30 mics, you know?
I stress tested immediately. We were going to record it at 96 24, but there was a layout issue because they'd never tried using more than like, a couple tracks at that bit rate. So we lost half of our mic inputs. So we ended up doing 48 purely out of we didn't want to spend time in the studio troubleshooting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit more about the recording process. We're probably going to take this like piece by piece in terms of like vocals and drums and guitars. I don't know, we might wing it too, but we'll leave certain spaces for questions sort of towards the ends of big explanations, etc. So if people could just maybe write your questions somewhere, and then once it's like question time, I'll just open the floor and you guys will drop a cue in the chat. We'll sort of just go in order, you know. Um, so yeah, I'm super stoked for this. So like Andrew, I guess from the ground up, what should we mention as far as like the recording process?
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. So, uh, what was the question? Anything where we
Yeah,
started
so
off
like
with recording it?
engineering wise, you know what I mean? So like I wrote these songs and then we had them sort of like pre-productioned out. So like
Hmm.
Andrew and I do pre-production, which is basically where you kind of demo everything out to a click first with the
Yeah.
song parts written, and then you sort of like record real drums on top of that, and then once you have the real drums on top of the pre-production, then you record your real guitars off of that,
Yeah.
or we do vocals first. I don't know what was the
It's
process.
we do like a glorified demo because we are so versed in going from point A to point B. Like at this point, you and I could open up a blank session if we said, let's write and record and do a final song. We could do it from zero to a finished product in the same session. But the mindset was at the time when we did our pre-production, we had a drummer and we were trying to be creative. And the idea was like, let's demo out these songs. Let's do pre-pro for these songs, get the structures laid out, get, you know, any creative ideas. Let's just get it in there and not worry about it sounding good. We have time later. I might go dig up the bounces of those pre-pros because I have them somewhere.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and they do not sound good, but that wasn't the point. The point was like, let's demo it out, but at the same time, do it to a click and sort of understand what we're doing when we get in there. There were really demos just with the final production in mind.
I
It's
was
like,
really annoying too. I was like giving you, I mean, for the first EP, I would like give you all these mix notes for the demos because I
oh
was like
man,
confused.
yeah,
We don't have to
yeah.
go there.
If you guys want to hear the demos and how overproduced the demos are, I think we still left them up on Bandcamp. I
They're
don't think
yeah,
we
they're
took.
on Bandcamp.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, the point I think what we were going for too is just like the more of the kind of writing and production you do up front, the less of that you have to worry about later in some
Hmm.
cases. And so we kind of just made sure we had all the parts written. Andrew and I have a whole other like seven batch of seven like a whole batch of seven songs
Oh
that
my God.
all
Yeah.
we really have to do is record the guitar parts because they're already written.
Yeah.
They're just kind of
And
demoed
those
out.
those are definitely an instance of taking it from demo to finished product in one session. Because you demoed everything and then recorded it and like did final vocal takes first in
Which
one
was
session.
really random.
Very interesting process. It's cool because we recorded real drums on top of that. We just did it on the same session.
Hmm.
We can go in and just redo the guitars, but we also could do changes because we haven't edited the drums yet. We could do structure changes. We could do anything we
Yeah.
want. It's still very malleable. But yeah, that's going to be a whole
Yeah, so
separate call.
for this EP, we got our pre-pro down and then we recorded the drum parts and the studio. And so
Yep.
like for the drums, like what was our sort of like mic setup for drums? I mean, just briefly, obviously, like this
Yeah.
isn't really an engineering call, but maybe just to give a little bit of context, you
I
know.
mean, the engineering is like because this is all real instruments, the engineering is 90% of the work. And
That's true. Yes.
like the reason that you'll see you'll see how many plugins I have on the drums is because I didn't engineer it well. Then when you look at the guitars, you're going to be like, wow, there's like nothing really in comparison. Like there's stuff, but there's
Mhm.
not like so much stuff that it like is completely changing it
And why is that with guitars?
because I know the tone I wanted and
Tone.
I took the time to the guitar tracking process was interesting, man. We can talk about that after the drums. So to answer the question, the drums for drum mics, I believe it was 421s on all the toms. Um it was a some sort of small diaphragm condenser and a dynamic mic, probably yeah, definitely a 57 on the snare top and snare bottom. I ended up not using the condenser mic at all, and that's one of the fun things of recording and engineering is you can just throw mics in that you just straight up won't use later. For the kick, I believe I used the Audix D112 as the kick in. I forget what I used as the kick out. I want to say it was probably a FET 47 or a U47, something like that, just some sort of large diaphragm condenser. And when you have nice mics available, use them.
Mhm.
There was no real rhyme or reason why I picked it other than it was there. For the overheads, it was C414s, just because I know what those sound like and I know how they're going to translate. I've used them on pretty much every drum recording I've done, but I do like to throw up a second set sometimes just to experiment. In some of these tracks, because when I show you later, it's actually two different drum sessions. One's not me playing drums; it's my friend Tay. We used a mono overhead, and that was a some sort of tube mic as the mono overhead, and it sounded really good. But on my drums, SM7 on the hi hats, small diaphragm condenser for the ride post mic, and I'm pretty sure that's it.
Hmm.
Overall, and then there were room mics where I used other large diaphragm condensers. We used a Bronner mic for our room mono, our room far, and it was great. I love that mic for pretty much everything. And it
Hmm.
sounds especially great as a room mic. But yeah, that's what I did there. For the mic pre's, we used mostly a combination of the Warm Audio Neve 73s and the Focusrite ISA preamps, the 828, 8 channel preamp, and then some Grace preamps as well, because we had so many mics on it. The idea was the Warm Audio 73s for anything we wanted saturation with, anything we wanted a preamp character on it. ISAs for anything that we wanted not as much character on it, like it wasn't of high importance, so like the toms
Hmm.
and the overheads, and then all the other mics were on the Graces because the Graces were just really clean. We didn't clip them. It was just capture the sound. But the 73s, the Warm Audio 73 clones, we clipped the shit out of, and it was not the best idea. It sounds good, and I would do it again, but a little differently,
Hmm.
but it would be more intentional if I do it again. This time it was like I baked in a sound and I had to work around it. So that was engineering the drums. We EQ'd it. We did a bunch of stuff on the way in. I can't remember the details on it, but there's videos, I'm sure. I
Hmm.
wanted to pull it up and reference.
Yeah. So like obviously Andrew and I like rented out this studio that we've been going to for a hot minute to record the drums. And that does show we're very much, I mean, we all kind of do what we can with the resources that we have available.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like if you try to, for example, like if you're working off of like four mics, for example, in a garage somewhere, it's going to be different. The process is going to be different for getting it to sound kind of like how where we're at. There's probably like in a case like that, you'd probably be using a lot more sample replacement. Whereas
Yeah.
Andrew and I, because of the fact that we did really engineer it like engineers, I guess you could say, in a real studio, we don't rely as heavily on samples. We're actually mixing the drum sounds themselves to sound more closer to the final thing versus like, I mean, even on my
What's
album, which I haven't
interesting,
really broken
so
down before, it's a lot more sample.
your album sounds a lot better and more natural because we didn't use samples. The toms were so poorly tuned and there was so much bleed.
Mhm.
I actually completely sample replaced the toms, which I'm not proud of. But you know,
Yeah,
that's
the
an
toms on
example
my
of
record sound.
they sound great. Yeah. I like how these sound too. I one of the things I did do
Mm.
was actually pull samples and tune the samples to match what the shells were resonating at, so they matched the overheads very well. It
Uh-huh.
sounds good. It sounds natural. There was effort put into it, but there was a point where I just couldn't get them to sound good
Yeah.
because of how poorly I tuned them, and I just
Hmm.
said screw it. I paid for Trigger. I'm going to use it, and yeah, so the toms are
Yeah.
heavily sample replaced. The snares were relying heavily on the samples for the attack of it, and that's because we saturated the
Hmm.
snare so much. The kicks actually didn't need too much, but we used it anyway just for consistency. So fair warning, when I
Um,
hit play, this is going to be full volume.
yeah, let me throw this in the chat for the producer fam. Oh, why am I sending it to the waiting room? Hold on. This is my first time using Zoom. Sorry, guys. Um,
And just so you guys can see how this session is an example of do as we say, not as we do sometimes, because some of it's very well organized. The vocals are very well organized. The rest of it, I did not do an amazing job
yeah, what's going
organizing
on
it.
here, dude? Are you even
Like, I mean, look at all those lead guitar layers. Like, there's not a lot going on at the same time, but I said I don't want to automate it. So every time there was a new section, I made new tracks.
Yeah, so like huge, enormous disclosure with anything that we show you guys that's like our personal project is that you have to get really good at the fundamentals to be able to kind of do the stuff that we do because what we're doing is
Yeah.
just absurd. It's like extra as fuck. And so I would never recommend someone do like whatever that what was that like 20 guitar tracks
I
like
mean, to be fair, we should not recommend for people to do their entire EP in multiple drum sessions in one
yeah,
Pro
we have
Tools session.
all the EP in one session, which
Yeah.
is kind of kind of a flex to be honest with you, but like don't do that.
Yes. Don't. This is when you have the when you have the balls to be like, all right, you know what? I can do this now. Go for it.
Uh-huh.
I originally was going to do it just for the drum tracking session because I was like, all right, well, if we're going to, record 25 mics at once, we might as well
Mhm.
just do it all in the same session. It'll be fine. And then we just put guitars over it. And then we never split it up. The cool thing about it, though, and it's something that I recommend you do if you have your fundamentals down, you're comfortable with how everything works, and you have a very powerful computer. Doing this allows you to make one tweak on all your lead guitars for the entire project. If they're all just sitting and they're all a little too harsh, you can go in here and tweak it, and it applies to every song. You make one tweak, you bounce it 6 times or for however many songs there are, it's done. Um, that's a benefit of doing it this way, but it's a little chaotic. It's definitely a lot to think about at once. Now, we were going to talk about what was it, drums, or was there any specific place you wanted me to start?
So I mean, why don't we talk about kick and snare to start because kick and snare are the only thing that matter really in modern music. So we could probably just start there.
Saying these things to trigger me.
Not
Um,
me, dude, not me. Who?
the rage
Or you
bait's
can start
real.
with the kick drum, I guess. So like,
So I'll start by just soloing the drums
yeah.
as a whole and just start muting stuff so you can hear how the big picture sort of collapses once you start getting down to individual elements, because the individual elements don't sound as good as the collective. And that's partially intentional, partially just a product of how this type of music can be. We'll start here with the drums. The volume for me. So right now what you're hearing is a combination of all the room mics, kick and snare mics, close mics, overhead mics. We also have parallel effects happening. So we have, let's see, a parallel compression / EQ bus. We take that out, it loses a little bit of punch.
Why don't you take off all the effects and then turn one on one by one? So this is like no parallel effects. So
Yeah.
like with drum stuff, you kind of get the clean sound first, and then the big spacious sound usually comes from the parallel effects. It's like kind of with anything.
Yeah.
Vocals are kind of the same way.
And one of the things is the snare, you can hear how heavily gated it is. You can hear how artificial the cutoff is on it. That's a combination of things. We have the sample here, and I'll mute the recorded mic. So that's just the drum sample there, adding the high end attack. And that's,
Yeah, one thing I noticed, like from working more and more with like triggered drum samples, a lot of times like the thick, like meaty, like girthy sound comes from the real recorded drums because you can pretty much get that chunk out of a drum no matter how poorly it's recorded. You can get that little chunky drum mid range.
Yeah.
And then the sample is usually where you get the like definition, the drum soundy sound.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, if it's recorded amazingly well, you don't have to do that.
Right.
This, again, is an example of where if we even just take a look at the waveforms of these, granted, I did go through and normalize the gain on them. You can see how that's what a normal drum would look like. This small section here. So you have no groups on, right? Yeah, cool. That's what a normal hit would look like. There's so much distortion and so much, we were overdriving the preamp so much that you have all of this tail of just low end muddiness and woof that I ended up having to gate and multiband compress and do stuff to get it to that point. So like, if I turn off all the plugins on just that, was that just playing that one section I had highlighted, of course, out the gate. Now it sounds gated because I actually went through and cleaned up the audio, and just removed as much of the bleed as I could. But there's only so much you can do before the cymbal noise makes its way through. Oh, we
Well,
also have
I like
gates
to
going on here. That's right. I have
I
gates
like to
everywhere.
actually like use I like to edit it manually, dude. Actually, on my album, this is one thing that I learned is that like yeah, gating is super helpful, but like sometimes to get the I don't know, but also like my
Hmm.
album is like super produced. And so for the super produced, I like to literally just like edit it so finely that only the snare hits are left. And so I don't think we did that for this. I think we just gated it, right?
No, you should. So I did that for. I just gated the snare. It looks like I thought I did it on the snare. I might have done it on the kick. There was something I did. There was a point where you and I were, um, you were editing vocals in at the recording studio, and I was in the other room with my laptop, and I was doing something that was going through and cleaning up noise. I can't remember
Mm-hmm.
if it was the toms or what it was. But I would agree with you that what you're saying makes more sense.
Yeah,
And
for the
is
kick too. Like for the kick, I had to chop out each individual kick, and certain DAWs make it easier to do than
Mhm.
others. You know, Pro Tools is really just built for editing audio. That's straight up what they're known for is like recording and editing audio. And like I don't know, like everything else too. I guess maybe not production, but like that's why I'm in Pro Tools personally, even though other DAWs might be better, is because of the editing, like in
Yeah.
Pro Tools. But like in other DAWs, it's like, you know, just like look up how to strip silence in your DAW, and that's how you do it.
Yes.
But yeah, I just
And one of the things you can do, and I'll just do it quickly as an example here. Let's highlight this. Um, you can do separate clip at transients, and you can choose what the separation amount is and stuff like that. There's a way to do it with strip silence that you actually just extract or
strip
separate
silence
instead
is
of
what I
strip.
use for the most
Yeah.
part.
And when you do it, it'll actually like, I don't know, let's just see what happens when I,
Yeah, because look at all that fuckery when the snare is not hitting, you know?
yeah, so I can basically tweak that
Yes,
to be
yeah, yeah.
something like
You guys
that.
seeing this? This is like
Then
why.
I would hit separate. I wouldn't just blanket, delete everything. I would separate it and then I would go and mute and clean it up, and I would just mute the sections that don't have a snare hit. And then once I have it cleaned up where it sounds good, I have my fades the way I want it, then I would render it. But
I
you
usually
also,
delete the audio and then go back and like see if anything got deleted by accident.
yeah, just like that. You hit
But
strip
yeah.
and it'll delete it automatically. Different trains of thought, different ways of doing it.
Mhm.
Definitely something I'm going to automate now that SoundFlow is on Windows. I'm going to figure it out because that's a game changer for me,
Yeah,
man.
so there's like an app that lets you automate all kinds of
Anything.
stuff in your DAW, which is very
And
crazy.
what's terrifying about it is it also the new version of it has a AI powered prompt where you tell it what you want to do. Like, I need 8 stereo tracks in one folder, this for that, this for
Mhm.
that. You just tell it, and then all of a sudden your DAW does it. And it's like, oh, we're going places. This is cool. This is terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, I want to see if I can get it to be like, hey, intelligently cut out bleed from this snare, like strip the silence, make it a new playlist, like
hmm
do all that stuff. So that way I can cut back and do what I need to. Out of curiosity, I did remove all the playlists. I was going to say I could show the original. That'd be interesting to load the original wave files of me just playing the takes raw, unedited, going through the mix. I should do that at some point. That'd be fun. Yeah, I processed this snare way too much.
Well, with snare, a lot of times where you get that, I mean, everything comes down to, for the most part, just like EQ and compression. I don't know. This is something I
Hmm.
talk about a lot on one-on-ones. Is that there's Andrew? I don't think I've ever talked to you about this, but there's really just three like dimensions to like sound and mixing. It's
Hmm.
tone, dynamics, and depth. So tone is like, you know, the EQ, right? Is like the
Hmm.
tone of it. Dynamics is the punch, the volume, you know.
Yeah.
And then depth is like how things sit in relation to each other, and things like reverb and delay and like the stereo
Yeah.
image, you know?
Yeah.
So if you kind of look at any mix down from the lens of those three dimensions, it's not so much like, what do I do? It's like, what does this even need? You
Yeah.
know? And so if we apply that to a snare, like how did you shape the tone of this snare, Andrew?
Yeah. So if you listen raw with no gate on it, a little quiet right now. Let me see if I can negative 5.2, or is it going to automate? It's not going to. All right, cool. Negative 5.2. I'll remember that. Um, you can hear how everything rings out. I used this gate not just to get rid of bleed, but to cut off how long the tail of the snare's sustain is. Um, so there was a lot of choices that went into this. I have a side chain. It's looking at this region of it. I noticed there was a lot of bleed from other mics. Usually I would look somewhere. There's an undo button. Great. Down here. But you can hear now the kick is starting to trigger it. So I decided to just leave it here. And that was mainly just by trial and error using the Audition and stuff like that. I used my release time to determine how long it was going to sustain, all that stuff. From there, we got Pro MB, which I'm doing a trick up here to get rid of cymbal bleed.
This is very black belt. This is like a multi-band compressor that's compressing. Wait, what the fuck are you doing here, dude?
So it's an expansion. So I have it cutting the highs, right? So this frequency range, the gain is pulled down.
Oh, I see what's going on. So it's like,
and then when it hits a certain threshold, it's gonna boost, right? Instead of compress. And I have the band detection. It's on free, so I have it looking down here for its detection. I want it to look at when the snare gets hit to open up, not when it sees something in the high end. This is a trick I got from watching some Nolly video.
That's
then
crazy.
This was also just some multi-band compression thing I decided to do. I don't know.
Everything you've done so far, by the way, hasn't even fallen into like the categories I mentioned. This is more like cleanup than anything, if you want my opinion.
Yeah, it's cleanup, but you also hear how it shapes the sound of the snare, right? So there was a sacrifice
it does make it tighter.
I lost the high end. So like you hear the cymbal bleed, but there is the high end of the snare attack that gets lost with this method.
Yeah.
Because of how aggressively I had to do it to get rid of the cymbal bleed. It was a choice. Do I deal with some of the cymbal bleed and get the natural sound of the high end of the snare, or use a trigger to take care of that high end of the snare and just get rid of the cymbal bleed? Mm-hmm. I went for the other option because it sounds better at the end of the day for what I was going for.
Yeah.
Then we have a very chaotic EQ.
This is giving me anxiety, dude. What's going on here?
And you can actually hear it's
this is shaping for sure. This is like tone.
It's shaping, and you can hear it's amplifying that resonant frequency a little bit. And some of it actually rings.
Resonant frequencies are not always bad. Like resonant frequencies, you think it's a bad thing, but in reality, sometimes that's what actually is supposed to cut through.
Right. And what I do want to say as well is a lot of these choices did not happen in first I will gate it, and then I will do this, and then I will do this. The first thing I always do is sum it all together and put a channel strip on it and start playing with it. And then I'm like, why isn't it doing what I want it to do? And then I start working backwards. So the first thing I probably put on this thing was this.
Engineers, you'd have a channel, and the channel has like a gate built in, and an EQ built in, and a compressor built in. That way the engineer could do a lot of the work on every single channel recording on the way in.
Yep.
And a lot of these channels had a specific sort of coloring to them. So it's kind of like this all-in-one thing. And so Andrew and I's method of mixing is very different. I'm very much like, digital, and he's very analog. And so that's why it's a nice, like, we complement each other super nicely, because we end up kind of meeting in the middle, get the best of both worlds. But this is sort of your first move, right? It's always treated as if you're kind of like a real engineer, I suppose, right?
Yeah, that's what I do. I come in and I'm like, all right, if there was no computers, what would I be doing? If this was playing off tape, what would I be doing? So I have the I have Mix Hub is like the core of this whole mix. I started mixing using the bucket view. I ended up not doing it too much because it got more complicated than I wanted it to the whole session. The idea is that once I had everything summed together, so I had my snare dynamic, I had my bottom mic and all in the triggers, I would go up to here, have those all summed together, start here, and I would intentionally put my plugin on this slot because I knew that I'm gonna want to put stuff before it. And then same thing here when I put my first gate. I put it here because I knew I was going to want to put something before it. Same thing with, basically all of these moves. I try to build in the middle and then go out as opposed to starting at the beginning, because then when I want to put something at the beginning, I mean, now I know Pro Tools allows you to just click and drag to move it, but that wasn't always the case.
It's a super advanced mindset too. I want to mention, like, generally I wouldn't do that if I was like starting out, other than like just like a gate probably before the thing. I usually kind of build from the bottom up, but then like the more advanced we get, the more we introduce things like top-down mixing, and then I think what you're doing here is
Yeah.
kind of like that in a
I do
sense.
everything pretty top down. It's like my overall structure is top down, so my mix bus will always start with these two, roughly at
Yeah,
these
top down
settings.
is when you have like plugins at the end of your master and you're just mixing into plugins to get the set to get like the final sound before you
Yeah,
even mix it. I don't know
it
how to describe it. Really.
it's like I know the everything's going to get limited at some point, right? It's all going to get mastered, it's going to be compressed. I also know I'm going to want a bus compressor, and I don't want my bus compressor doing too much, but it being there is going to influence the sound. If
Yeah.
I pull all the faders up on my drum set and it sounds good, and then I pull my guitars up, I want them to be in your face, but then when the snare comes, I want it to kind of duck everything a little bit. Just like that's the sound I know I want, especially out of this
Mhm.
kind of music. So it just makes sense for me to start there and be like, okay,
Mhm.
when I play this, the snare, it was negative 5.2 if I remember correctly here. I know it's gonna compress just a little bit. In fact, when it's not summed together and we don't have everything, so like, add the sample in, get the snare bottom in. Oh, that's right. There's also the parallel stuff that
Oh yeah.
so you can see now it's starting to move.
Your folder is still not unmuted. The effects folder. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a drum set.
Yeah. Anyway. You can even
Yes,
hear this.
I usually
I was going to say, you can still hear some edits that didn't get caught before
it's
it went
okay.
out. But whatever.
I already uploaded
It's
it,
good.
so it's all good. It's already released. So, the only thing I was gonna say is that, like, yeah, I usually don't recommend people do top down until they're more black belt at mixing, just because you'll end up like making decisions based on the top down stuff.
Yeah. And thank you. The kick is pretty
Yeah.
nice.
Why don't we jump over to kick? Maybe? Talk
Well,
about-
just real quick.
Oh
I
yeah, the
wanted to,
compression. I think.
there's a lot to it. I mean, like I repitched it. A little more EQ, get more body out of it. That resonance was too much in the mix overall. Compressor, the DBX adds smack when you
This is the compressor, by the way, for that sound. Is like the DBX. Like it's like
Yeah.
the most. I think the best way to get your sort of slappy, typical like hard hitting snare sound
Yeah.
is using a compressor to compress it.
And you can
And this
see
is
I'm not
the
even,
one.
it's at 1.5. I'm not doing anything crazy to it. But once I turn it on versus off, the snare bottom sort of goes away, but it stays in a very pleasing way.
Mhm.
Compress another one just to get more attack
More
out of it.
compression.
This was for the character of a 160. This was to exaggerate the character of the 160.
You could be a little more careless with like drum compression versus vocal compression. I'm not saying you're being careless, but like you can be a little more like aggressive with drum compression, because drum compression, it's almost like you're rewarded for being more aggressive, you know? Drum processing in general, it's like you could be super aggressive. And I think vocals to a certain point you can as well.
Oh yeah, when you see
Like,
this session, everything's very aggressive on the vocals,
yeah.
but it's because of the music. It's because of the style.
Yeah.
It's not something that if you want crystal clear, pristine sounding vocals, you don't do what we did here. Um, oh yeah, and then probably what? Oh, that's an interesting one. So this was more like a combination of dynamics control, but it's more, you can see it's more for transient shaping. I wanted the transients to have more of certain frequencies. I wanted certain bands to be boosted, but also not happening all the time.
Oh, dude, that's nice. Oh, that's nice.
Very subtle movements it's doing, but it's very exaggerated moves on the actual
Mhm.
compressor. Pro
What is that
Q4.
called again? It's like dynamic EQ, but the other way. So like I hardly really get a chance to teach this because this is like after you've mastered like mixing as a whole and like cleaning up. That's when it's sort of like subtractive first mentality, right? And then after we've done subtractive, notice that this is at the very end of your chain. After we've cleaned it up and gotten it nice and clean or whatever, then you start doing like additive stuff to enhance it. And this is that. This is like additive EQ, but not just that, it's additive like dynamic EQ where it's going
Yeah.
up.
I mean, I did do some additive stuff here, but dude, at the same time, I probably did additive stuff engineering it. Like
Yeah.
our sessions or when I engineer stuff, when I do stuff, I break every rule
Well,
because
the
I
order
just
doesn't fucking matter once you're like
it
nice,
doesn't.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah, if you know what you're looking for, if you at the end of the day, if you boost a region by a certain amount and then later you cut something about it by a certain amount, if there's no compression or saturation in between the two, it doesn't matter which order you're putting it in. But
Hmm.
the second you introduce compression, saturation, all that stuff, now it matters. Now it actually does something. The snare bottom mic really is just the sound of the snares. Gated it. Again, doing a very narrow region that for it to trigger off of because it's closer to the kick drum. Boosting highs, boosting lows to get more body out of it. Same cymbal bleed trick. The snare condenser, it actually sounds good when it's in there. It's just too much with everything that I had, so it didn't get used. And then that is a very static one-shot sample. There's very little dynamics that were used in it. I cut out the body of it so that way the body of the mic'd signal would come through. I gave it more top end. Basically anything that the mic'd one was lacking, this is compensating for. This is just barely touching the DBX. More EQ moves. You can see I'm not even using the dynamic band. It's completely off. I'm saturating it because I wanted to get more harmonic content out. Or it might have just been low volume, so I pushed the gain there. Yeah, because I don't see it really set, or it's red, so that means it is clipping somewhere. But yeah, that's what gives you the overall snare sound.
Yeah. And
That
I wanna also make a
yeah,
point. A lot of really big rock records, all they'll do is just slap a snare sample in there. And that's why a lot of records sound exactly the same. That's why a lot of records sound like they have the exact same snare sound, is because they literally, a lot of them just use the same snare sample. What we're
yeah,
doing here is this is how you make it so that your record sounds different from like every other record, is that you kind of like create your own sound from the ground up. And there's nothing wrong with just like slapping a snare sample on and calling it a day. I think a lot of people do that, and that's how you kind of turn it into this like machine of cranking out records that all
yeah,
sound the same. But then your record is just gonna sound like every other record if you just throw a snare sample on. So that's why Andrew and I like to like engineer stuff and then kind of like blend in a sample and then just kind of mix it differently.
yeah,
Because like no record has this snare sound because of that, and so we
yeah.
take pride in that kind of thing.
And on that, like I emulate CLA with a lot of what I do. I depart from his philosophies sometimes. Um, but he has a few snare samples that he layers into every track that he does because he gets records that are engineered amazingly. Like
Mhm.
they don't need the sample, but when he puts it in there, it gives it the sound of being mixed by him because it's been used on everything he's done.
Mhm.
So, there is that element too. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is the snare sound is going to come from also your overheads.
Yeah.
So, like, actually sounds left heavy, so I might have had the gain on the left a little louder for whatever reason. Um, and then the room mics as well, which are really quiet.
You might as well not have that in there.
It's interesting because like I would mute it and I would like forget about it and be like, why doesn't it sound big? Another thing is our parallel processing isn't on
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true.
because I am sending quite a bit to the parallel and all
Oh,
that
that'll
stuff.
yeah, that'll do it too.
So like all of that matters, and then you add in your parallel processing. This is like sort of a parallel compression using a distressor, taking out some of the frequencies that were clouding the vocals, EQ it a little bit to really get rid of some of them, high pass it, really distort it, do stuff to it. It doesn't sound good by itself. Reverb is mainly just for the snare, but other things do get sent for it. Reverb is mostly for the overheads and stuff like that to sort of put them in a space. But yeah, that's that. We can move to the kick. I'll again mute the parallel effects. And we have a kick in. Something I should note, these have all gone through a tape saturation plugin, and I flattened it where it's actually hitting it kind of hard to bring out harmonics. So that first slot that's empty on here, there was a tape plugin that I would just do commit up to this insert. And then
very important to note that.
Yeah. So that was on most of the drum tracks here.
And
I
the
think
tape plugin gives it a little more like high-end flavor, no? Or
it can. I don't know what I would have to go back and pull the originals to like compare them. I either used it to bring out high end or I used it to bring out low end and tame the high end. It could have gone either way. It all depends on how you're hitting it, what the IPS speed is, because the lower the IPS, the less high end definition you're going to have. There's all sorts of things that go into it.
Tape is one of the like least straightforward plugins to understand what it's doing and how to use it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I always recommend people just read the plugin menu and understand how things relate to how tape actually works. So, but yeah,
which is a big thing to.
I just slap it on usually and just, leave it.
So if we just listen to the raw kick, you can hear a lot of the bad edits.
Yeah, I don't love whatever's going on right now.
So I left them in because I used a gate to get rid of all the noise, so it didn't bother me. And CLA drums, because I'm a fan of using using plugins when you know what they're doing. So I originally wasn't too big of a fan with CLA's all-in-one plugins. I liked this because it's a console, it's a channel strip. You know what it's trying to do. This was very like sort of, give you low end, give you high end, compress and all this stuff. And I was like, well, I'd like to be a little more hands-on. Waves posted pictures of like his handwritten notes of what he wanted these to be. And it even says what style EQ each setting was going to be. And once I knew that, I started using it a little more. And, I'm just using some compression. I believe Push is a DBX 160. I forget what the EQ choices are, but there's something, and it helps bring the sound to where I wanted it to be.
Yeah, so what I'll say about the all-in-one plugins too is that all-in-one plugins are usually what people kind of default to when they don't know how to mix, but the issue is that when you don't have the fundamentals and you don't know what things are doing, you like push things in the wrong direction and you just kind of like miss the mark, honestly. So it's fine to use all-in-one types of plugins like that if you have a solid foundation for EQ and compression, etc.
Got a group going. Let's get through these. Turn off all groups. So this is just the kick in. EQ is very slight, high pass. Make room for the kick out because it's going to have a more defined low end.
What's the initial EQ on the kick look like? Or is it this?
So the first EQ move on the kick in is actually the CLA stuff. So I boosted the lows and I cut the highs.
Oh, interesting.
Because
what does it sound like, raw again?
Sure.
Or just maybe you just bypass. Oh, okay. We must have EQ'd that on the way in. Because a lot of times, yeah, so like, can you open up just like a fab filter real quick on this? I just want to illustrate something.
On the kick?
Yeah. Just because, like usually when you record a kick, it has a, look at that. This makes my point. It's like a kick it's always a smiley face by the time you're done mixing it. It's always like a lot of lows and like the click. It's like the oomph and the click, right? And then all that stuff around in the middle is usually you just scoop that out, and that's where a lot of because that's like guitar land, guitar and bass land. So that's usually what the kick kind of looks like when you're done mixing it. We must have just like cranked that on the way in, like scooped all that shit on the way in,
Yep. For the kick out, it's just low end. I use the low pass to really get rid of everything. So it's 18 hertz, I guess. So barely doing anything. The EQ, really taking away the attack out of it. I wanted the kick in to handle that responsibility. Dynamics are in, but I don't think they're doing much. Yeah. Oh, they're gating. I have the gate going. Looks like a bell peak at around 40 hertz on the kick out. Then when this loops back around, you'll be able to hear the kick sample.
That's a sample.
Yep, and you can see I don't want any dynamics out of it.
It sounds like you're just like slamming it every time on every hit. Just like a straight up.
I deliberately programmed it that way. So that way, and you can see I'm boosting the volume of the signal to 10 decibels, so it maxes out everything every time. I did have to phase flip it, which you can see here. The samples were out of phase with what I recorded, so I just flipped them. Then it all comes together, and I gave it a little more EQ.
How can you tell if the sample is out of phase from how you recorded?
Sure. I can tell by ear. So I'll just flip it here. Here, how the low end went away.
It's less strong, yeah. Oh yeah, what the fuck? That's crazy.
Yeah. So whenever you're layering multiple mics, you want to make sure that your phase is coherent. And you want to look for the body of the sound. Because like if you listen, it actually amplifies the high end and makes it sound a little more clicky.
Yeah.
And some people would go like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. But you completely lose all of that body.
Yeah, it's not as tight. It's kind of like flabby.
Did a little EQ moves here on the bus of everything blended. Again, more DBX because it does what it does. Then more EQ moves, basically to make it sit in the mix more. And that's the kick and snare. And again, with those, once these come in.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not afraid of the 80s sounding reverbs.
Why is there so much? There's that much reverb on the kick?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you don't hear it.
That's crazy. So what does it add?
What do you mean? Like, how much am I sending?
No, like, what, like...
I have it going to the reverb here, and then I have it going to the parallel bus here.
Like, why do you add this much reverb to the kick? Because I actually haven't really seen this before. I mean, yeah, you don't hear it, but what's the gain?
Well, sure, I'll just bypass it so you can hear. Oh yeah, Epic's on right now. I was like, why is the reverb muted? And we had to do some weird stuff with that. So I'll just put this back. And then I can... That's without it.
Uh-huh.
Oh, actually, nope, kick sample. Might sound a little tighter in the mix, too. It doesn't sound glued to me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But now that you're listening for it, it's going to sound messy. I also boosted this a lot. I forget what it was originally at, so I might just eyeball it. Sounds fine.
Yeah, that sounds a lot better. I think it was going a little more ham before. Okay, interesting.
So it's still there.
Yeah, it's not okay. Very interesting. Yeah, so yeah, it's funny. Like you can have these intense reverbs and like all this stuff will sound so out of whack. It'll sound really strong in solo, and then when you go and throw it into the mix, it's like you can't even hear it. But then when you take it away, it's like you're missing all the depth in the whole mix. So it's the same thing with vocals. It's like you'll make I put the vocal reverb super high when I throw it into the mix. It's like you can't even hear it. But then when you take it off, it sounds way too dry. You know?
Yeah, and that was kind of the idea with all of my moves here. Mm-hmm. This is actually the original volume it was at. But yeah, the kick sample is giving quite a bit of reverb in the room. Mm-hmm. You know, we cut it out. Not the most extreme thing in the world.
Yeah.
It just adds a depth. It sounds like it's actually in the room, you know?
Yeah. Makes sense.
But yeah. From there, I mean, the next thing that's always important is the overheads, because that's pretty much the rest of the kit.
Mm-hmm.
So no processing on the individual tracks other than the tape and whatever we did on the way in.
Mm-hmm.
This, because without it, it's a little too much. I prefer this sound, like listening to it. Like this sounds bad to me, but once it's in a mix, I'm like, right.
Okay. Yeah, it evens out. Yeah. This is a dynamic resonance suppressor, for those of you that don't know about Soothe. In a sense, it's like a dynamic EQ, and it's kind of doing what it looks like it's doing. Like it's just kind of lower. It's like reacting to these higher frequencies and just pulling them down over time.
Yep, and the higher you boost here is the more it's going to attenuate, the more it's going to pull down. From there, a little bit of gentle compression, nothing crazy. Distorting high end to bring out some brightness, so without it. Like super subtle stuff.
All these layers of saturation and distortion add up. This is how you get an exciting mix.
Just so you guys know, there is another Saturn on the master that is going crazy.
Yeah.
Without it, it sounds very bland. Dynamic EQ. Yes. You can see how that's the EQ moves, and then it moves as it hears stuff. And the thing about overheads is they don't sound good in isolation, ever. Like, it's gonna get annoying the more you listen to these. So like, see, to me, that
do you
sounds
compress
amazing.
the overheads?
Yeah, but not by like a crazy amount. I try not to, but it's one of those things where the engineering really makes a difference. So like, here, I'll show a decent example once we get back into the mix. Now I'll turn it on. It evens them out because if I turn them up too loud, even when it's off, a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And it's funny how like in that, at least in that part of the song, you can't really hear the cymbals too much.
Yeah.
So I guess it would be this one. Oh, over here.
When desire and Vitalex fills my eyes, I'm inspired to paint this anxious reply to the fire that drags me through the throes of dismay, pretending that I'm okay. While my clock's right on
The decay is a lot shorter,
days, I'm still
and that's fine. I kind of prefer this. I wish I thought of that before we bounced it, but hey, we're here.
Yeah. That always happens. I'll be like filming a tutorial, realizing something like, fuck
Yeah.
up. You know, like,
Oh,
fuck.
like this. For a while, I had this. Yeah, the parallels should be on there, but they're not.
Hello.
So
Yeah, I think the thing I was gonna say with overheads is like you can press them, but just like a little bit, because if you over compress them, then they turn into noise straight up.
Yeah.
So.
yeah. I mean, these are pretty noisy anyway. They're very bright. You can see the amount of EQing I'm doing. I'm even pulling up more high ends to get brightness out of it. But if this is anything below like 9 to 10K, it's just harsh. It just sounds awful.
Yeah.
These plugins here are for the other drum session. I actually automate everything but soothe off and automate those on for the two sessions.
That's interesting. Yeah. We have two of these songs are done by an entirely different drummer and an entirely different recording
Different
session.
everything.
So,
Yeah.
which we're not gonna get into, but that's what he's talking about.
Yep.
Um,
And you can see it needs less because I engineered it better the second time.
yeah. There we go. That's the point. That's the point to be made.
Learning curve.
Yeah. Cool, man. What else with drums? Or is that like,
I mean, that's really it.
pretty
The
much
tom,
it?
there's no real great example of anything with toms because I
because you
triggered
just
it.
sample replace them? Yeah, that's fine.
Saturn to add more saturation on it, on the samples, had to really go to work with the
Fuck
EQs to
those
make them
two
sit.
frequencies in particular, yeah. Transient shaping on drums is actually like
Yeah.
I like that more than compression because I feel like it's quicker. Like I
So
feel
this
like if I,
this is a quicker tool, but it is compression. So like that's what's like
yeah, it's like,
transient shaping is like the DBX. We're using
like,
it for
it's like
transient
compression
shaping.
for dummies, dude. That's how I describe it. Like transient shaping.
It's when it's like I just want less attack. I'm gonna pull this up and pull the attack
Yeah.
down. I never use this plugin for
There's
boosting.
a free one, by the way, if for y'all that like are interested. I'll look it up. You can keep going, Andrew.
Mhm.
I'll throw it in the chat. What's it called? It's like Flux, right? Transient shaper. Yeah, Bittersweet Flux. Oh, Bittersweet Free by Flux. Here, if y'all are interested, here's a free transient shaper that I use. Throw it in the chat. Or not that I use, but that I recommend.
So I, again, going into this, more EQ, a little bit of compression, it seems like. I'll switch to the first verse where I'm actually using all the toms. It would be around there.
people you hate.
Yeah, so pretty aggressive, fast attack on.
Wish for
And it's important to make a lot of those calls in the context of the mix, you know?
Yep.
You don't want to, like, do all those things in solo, because like I would never land on this as the tom sound. Like this does not sound good.
Yeah, it
Sounds
sounds a
pretty
little
dull.
too boomy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the mid range gets swallowed in the mix sometimes.
Yeah. And can you hear how it even sounds shorter? Because it blends into the bass guitar, it blends into the guitars, it all melds together. But yeah, then it's just close mics, rides, stuff like that. Nothing too crazy. Saturation, tape, because I didn't have a tape plugin running on it. Or if I did, I wanted more. Cutting some frequencies I didn't like. And that's literally it on this. Probably identical. Yeah, I think I literally duplicated the track, the EQ moves, and went for it. Room mics, compressed them too much. Mono, I did a parallel compression thing with the 76.
That's funny. I do want to say something. There's so many room mics on this, and that's amazing. And I love that for you and for us. But on my album, I literally muted all the room mics and just rocked like a couple reverb plugins and
Yeah.
just simulated it with reverb. So
Yeah.
there's two different ways you could go about getting like the drum space. You know, you can mic it off with room mics, which is gonna sound dope and super organic. But you could also just like simulate it with like a couple reverb plugins.
I'm doing both, right?
You are doing both, yeah.
Because like the room mics aren't necessarily for the room sound, it's more for the transient delay that you get.
Interesting. What do you mean?
So without it, and then with it.
Interesting. It does have a little bit of like a
It's a
slap
depth
to it, right? Yeah, it's a depth thing. Yeah.
It's a depth, it's a psychoacoustics thing, because if I go back in here and I boost it.
It's almost like when on that one record we added like a slapback delay to the drums, kind of like CLA does.
Yeah, absolutely.
More conceptual.
And I think I have slap delay somewhere on here. But it's purely there to give a sense of depth to the drums, that it's a thing in a 3D space. Reverb is only going to capture one thing. Like, it's sort of like if you put a speaker in a room, because this is how they capture IRs. They put a speaker in a room and a microphone really far away. They do a blast of white noise through it, like a short blast, and capture what happens to it. And then they run your audio through that capture. And that's how you get an IR. That's how you get room reverb. But the problem with that is you're not capturing what a drum set sounds like in there. You're capturing what a drum set going through a speaker sounds like in there. When you use these room mics, you're going to hear what it sounds like when there's a drum kit and everything's coming from different places and everything's bouncing in different ways and the cymbals are doing different things, bouncing off the ceiling. And it's really cool. It's really advanced.
You gotta have a good
stuff
room
to think about, but I just like to use them and automate them for energy. That's not something that really sound that great. That's what I'd say pretty much it for drums.
Cool. Let's open it up for any questions now. Drums, by the way, are like the biggest topic in general. It's just that's why
Especially
we just spent an hour talking about drums, because drums and one of the arguments for that also is that drums very arguably are one of the most important things in any record is like the drum sound. It's always like vocals number one, and then it's usually like drums. I don't really think they're in the same lane necessarily, but like your drum sound will literally make or break your record. So that's
I would argue drums are more important than vocals, because like you don't have to have a perfect vocal production, but you can have a great vocal take with bad vocal production over great sounding drums, and people are going to like it.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah. So what questions do you guys have? If anyone has a question, drop a Q in the chat and we will talk about it and answer your question. Any questions? Punchy drums for life. I agree. Or if there are no, yeah, Ryan, what's good, bro? You can unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so when you at the very beginning you were talking about miking the drums, and even though you used samples for the toms,
Yeah.
you mentioned you use 421s to mic the toms.
Yeah.
Is there a particular reason for those 421s? I see it's kind of a common mic for toms. I'm just wondering what your philosophy is behind that.
I started using it because it was a common mic for toms. And I've switched to 57s and then I switched back to 421s and I liked the 421s more. A lot of engineering isn't necessarily the sound that you get. It's the polar patterns. It's what you don't pick up. So like I would rather pick a mic that sounds a little bit worse but rejects the cymbals better because I can boost the high end there because it's actually not getting the high end from the cymbals. And I found that with the 421s, I both enjoyed the tone a little bit more and the polar pattern worked better for the application where I wasn't getting as much cymbal bleed. They are a bigger pain when it comes to actually miking toms with them. You don't really want to use them if you have a drummer with low cymbals. They're good. I like them. You really can use any dynamic mic you want. What's more important than the mic you choose is where you place it. Make sure you're rejecting cymbal noise as much as you can and capture samples of your kit before you record.
That's important because, dude, there's nothing that's like more of a buzzkill than when your tom mic has so much cymbal in it. That's rough, you know? And so, yeah, I agree. Like, I didn't even know that to like capture. Well, I didn't even know that that's a tip, but that's a really good tip to like capture raw, just tom. That way, like, you could sample replace with your own recording with no cymbal noise if you need to.
You can actually see in our session where I did that. I never went through and like cleaned up every one and used it all. We didn't capture enough to make a full kit out of it or full sample pack, but I have enough hits here that like if there was a hit that I flubbed or too much bleed on a hit, I could find one that was a similar consistency and just copy and paste it over. Then I ended up replacing it all anyway.
Yeah, it's all right.
How it goes.
Ryan, does that answer your question? Or do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, that does answer my question, but I guess that leads into the cymbal bleed trick you were talking about, which I was pretty enlightening to see that. So appreciate that.
Yeah, so here's the better version of it that I just didn't do because I'd already gotten this far in the mix. And it looks like I did it on the second drum kit where you put up Saturn and you put a split at 1K, no saturation, and just everything above 1K, turn your dynamics all the way down. Something about this dynamics processor does what I did with Pro MB, the multiband, but better. Trying to see if I did it on, looks like I did not do it on that snare mic on the bottom. I did not, but I did on the kick. Yeah, that's a really important thing as well. It's the same thing, but easier. You can just save it as a preset and throw it on, and it just always sounds great.
Hell yeah. Patrick was good, dude.
Yo, yes, I had a question about the reverb that they're using for the drums. So are you sending like just the close mics to the reverb, or do you blend the room, or like do you send any of the room mics to the reverb too?
So most of the reverb sound is coming from the overheads. I'm actually not using my close mics a whole lot for the reverb sends. So you can see I have a bunch of sends going on my samples. There's no sends happening on my mics, but the sum is getting a little bit of plate reverb sent to it. Or plate reverb is being fed a little bit from the sum of everything. But for the most part, it's the samples with long reverb, a little slap delay that's automated, parallel. A lot of that's coming from the samples. Even with the kicks, you can see the kick samples are what's being sent, and then a little bit from the sum. Nothing from the toms. Toms are completely dry. The overheads and the rooms get the majority of it.
Okay, that's interesting. So for the snare and the kick, it's like, you know, you're sending the two mics to a bus for each of them, and then you send that to the reverb.
So I'm sending for the kick, you're getting the kick in and kick out and the kick sample all go to the kick sum, so this folder. We also have the kick in, kick out, and kick sample from the other session. So this is like two sessions mixed into one. Normally you'd only see 3 tracks. This has 6 because it's 2 drum tracking sessions. But that's all summing to here. Inside the summing, I have the kick samples sending in parallel to the reverbs. And the same goes with the snare. So like the snare samples, these 3 get sent to the reverbs. You get a little bit from the sum, but that's not the core of the sound. It's coming from the sample.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That sounds really good.
Thank you.
Thanks, dude.
Appreciate it.
Does anyone else have any questions before we talk about either guitars or bass, or we'll figure it out? Cool. Andrew, what are you feeling?